As a kid, my aunt used to sing and do talent shows, and I used to like. I was always a little kid who tagged along to follow her, and then my uncles were musical as well. One of them used to, he had a keyboard, he would create music, and he used to, try to get me to write lyrics at a very, very young age. And then other uncle was an artist. He painted, he can draw anything. So I've always been around that creativity. My parents always played records in the house, soul music. That was like how we did things. Like if it was the weekend, if they're cleaning up the house on the weekends, there's music going on. But they're cooking, there's music going on. So it's always been around me. And then I just wanted to do it. It just felt natural. Yeah, when I started as a kid, obviously Usher, I wanted to be Usher. Usher was that guy, Boys the Man, you know, anything like, 90s. It was just like, oh, I want to, you want to be part of that world. Um, but as I started to grow and study music, I fell in love with like Stevie Wonder. And, that's when like, wow, lyrics are so important. The music is great too and very important, but also are you telling a story? What are you singing about? Melodies, harmonies. So, you can't really put them in a box. And that's kind of how I've, in my career around the way is that I'm always creating, reinventing, and just doing what I love and not trying not to stay pigeonholed. You know what? It's crazy. When I first started with CD Baby, as far as putting on music, I was just R&B kind of pop. That was my lane. And then in 2015, I was in Boston. I was living in New York at the time, but I was in Boston visiting family. And then I got snowed in here. And then a friend of mine, Calvin Spester, had a studio, and he was like, "You should come create." And he's a DJ. He does house music. And he was like, "You would sound really good doing house." And at that point, I was really kind of like burnt out with the R&B and trying to get noticed there, and it wasn't really fitting what I wanted to do. So I just did it for fun. And then Kelvin, being part of that world and growing up, going to clubs in New York with Kenny Dope and Masters at Work, Louis Vega and Todd Terry, he was part of that whole scene. So he sent the demo to Kenny on SoundCloud. And then Kenny's wife, hit us back and was like, "Oh my God, this is really good. Who's that kid singing on the record? We want to meet you guys." And Kenny loves it because he said my voice reminded him of that time. And so, and the music obviously of that time, because Calvin's from that time. So we met up with him. He took us to lunch in Connecticut. And then my first single came out like a couple months later and was Turn You Up. And then from that, he had Todd Terry, who's another legend, do a remix of it. And then I just kind of got sucked into that scene, and I love it. It's the best. And it's really freeing. It's really like a big community, dance music. And I work really hard, so I was just able to like just I just started reaching out and working with people and collaborating. It's a very collaborative field. First of all, because I was trying at that point to be like famous, like the goal was always to get a record deal, all that kind of stuff. So I was burnt out because instead of like when I first started releasing music, I was just creating whatever I wanted to create. But when I started trying to get attention from labels, and I would go to label meetings, and then I would go and change my style to whatever they said they wanted, and that's how I got burnt out, because then I wasn't being true to myself. I wasn't just creating. I was trying to be whatever artist that they told me they wanted on that particular day. And if anybody's been to those kind of meetings, it's pretty much BS. They'll tell you whatever, they tell you something different the next day. And then, but if something blows up, then they want you to be that. So I got burnt out because of that. So as far as the importance of collaborating, it was just that it just happened at the right time that I was open-minded enough. And I say, thank God that I was ready at that point to try something different, because if not, I would have been stuck, trying to please this, something that I couldn't be. So the fact that Kelvin at that time, I was in Boston at that time, I was open-minded, and at that moment, it led to the collaboration with Kenny. And because of that, because I was like, okay, well, this is where I'm at, I'm gonna, work from here, then more opportunities started to come. And then I started to reach out to people. The big thing about it too, you have to listen to other people's music, not just your own. And I think as artists, a lot of time we just get stuck listening to our own stuff. So I would go out and listen to stuff, and if I heard something I liked, I would reach out to that person and I would say, hey, I like your music. And, I'm a writer, I'm a singer. If you want to collaborate, let's collaborate. And some people would say, oh, yeah, let's do something. Some of the collaborations I've done have brought me all over the world because I've teamed up with people and then I've built fans in those markets. And I think people don't think about it that way. Everybody's kind of like in their own circle. But, it sounds cliche, but, we're stronger together. Working with other artists, you get brought into their whole orbit. And people who never would have heard of you maybe now listening to you. So it's just dope, and it pushes you. If you're collaborating with the right people, it pushes you creatively to create better music, and you learn how other people work, and it's pretty cool. I have my piano player Jake Lim, who the stuff that I release on my own that I put out through See Baby. I'll usually write it with him at the piano and just get the vibe. And then I'll reach out to a DJ who I think has the vibe that I want for the track. And then we'll send it to them. And then they'll produce something to it and send it back. And everything, is very virtual. Like everything is online. So usually it's already written. I write with him because a lot of the DJs are not musicians. So a lot of it is kind of just loops. And so I like to have changes in a lot of my music. So my piano player, I started doing R&B first. So that's me, it's natural to write with a piano player or a guitar player. So we'll write and then we'll send it around and get it produced by somebody. And then that will be that collaboration. But also sometimes people reach out to me and they'll send me a track that they already produced. And I'll do the top line for it and write it and then send it back to them. And if they like it, then we move forward and mix and master it. So it just depends. I love working with a piano player because you have more control to change things and do things. But also sometimes I get a track and it's just amazing. And it's like, oh, perfect, and I write to it and then maybe we'll make some changes here or there. But, it's pretty simple process for me. I think that's one of the things I've been lucky with. I don't really get stuck, as far as writing. And I don't force things either. If it's not there, then I just don't do it. But for me, it's fun. I love it, and I've been doing it for so long. It just kind of comes natural. But yeah, it's either those two ways. Either we're from scratch with piano, or it's a track coming to me from somebody that's already been produced, and I'll ask them what's the vision they have, or they have a theme they want to go with, or if they're like, no, do whatever you feel on it. We trust you. We want that vibe, and it's even better. And I just go in and I create a mood and something that I feel like will work in the clubs. What I've discovered is that everybody's just trying to figure it out, and there's no one record that's gonna, even when you see those overnight one record and like boom, and they're touring. There's so much more work behind that they've done that people don't know about. But people don't really talk honestly about it because people want that whole illusion of, I just got lucky, I did this record. But it's so much work and it's so much networking and it's so much gatekeeping, and it's so much selfishness that people don't want you to get through certain doors because they want to do it first. So I guess the biggest lesson for me that I've learned is, you just gotta do your own work, and you gotta do it because you love it, and you have to trust yourself, because if everything you make, whether you like it or not, is based on if someone else says it's hot, it's just gonna be hell for you, because what I create something today that I think is so hot, and then everybody says, oh, that's not hot, that's not what this person is doing, and then I stick with it, and then that thing blows up, then that's the new thing, So I think people would really just follow your own gut and do the work, collaborate with people, and also collaborate with people that you really like, music-wise, because sometimes we collaborate, and I've done it too, with people who just have huge numbers, and I think, oh, that would be a great collab, that would help me get to that, and it doesn't work that way. I've done collabs with Kenny, I've done collabs with Todd Terry, and these guys have like millions of monthly listeners, and it helps me get my name around, but there's no instant, boom, now I have that a million listeners a month. this doesn't work that way. And I think that's the misconception. It was awesome to be able to put out my own music and not have to wait for a record deal, you know? It was like that, taking that power and being, proactive. I love that. I was like, wow, this is really cool. I was playing at that time, shows around Boston and Cambridge when I was in college, and it would be packed rooms. And I was like, I have the audience here. What am I waiting for? This deal. I'm just going to put out the music if people wanted it. So that was huge to me to learn that I could put out my own music. And then streaming and stuff and all these other things came along, and then they, could now put it around the world for me. I was like, oh, this is huge. So distribution is huge. It's like you take the power back. You don't have to wait for anybody to tell you you're good enough to put out your music. You can do it. And I think that's huge. And I think we're seeing that now with so many artists are, they have access, they have the tools, and how they can put out their music, and it's changing a lot of people's lives as well. So I think distribution is just amazing. And, it's allowed me to reach people in places I've never thought I would be able to reach. The fact that they distribute everywhere, like I can get my music on every platform all over the world, that's huge. And then artists have to remember, you have to do the work. I think a lot of time with artists as well, we think if they do this and it's done and your job is done, you can just go play. But no, it's so much work. So I look at the tools. Like, for example, I can go into CD Baby and I can see my demographics, see where my streams are coming from. Just like I can on Spotify, but I can see specifically my music that I put out directly on CD Baby, and I can see, okay, this age group is really rocking with my music, or this country or this city is really rocking. And then I can focus and promote, push a little harder. The single there, single's doing good here. Okay, I can put some ads, or I can do a cool video and then target it to that area. Or if I want to play a show, I can say, okay, well, my numbers here are really good. Let me reach out to some artists who live in that area and see if I can collab with them and maybe open up for them in a show, or we can just do a song. So you can see those actual numbers, and you're not really just shooting in the dark. Because a lot of times people know promoting ads and you waste a lot of money, and sometimes you just don't know if it's working or not, But if you can see these numbers, at least it gives you a better chance of, putting that target, the market to the right place. So those things are amazing for an artist to have, the tools that we really didn't have before.
What do you like about EPs? Because this series excites me, and I feel like there's kind of a strategy behind that too for artists to maybe take inspiration from.
Yeah, I just feel like I create so much stuff, and then it sits on my computer because I'm like, oh, I can't release it. I have to wait 8 months to release the next one because I want to be able to pitch it properly. But then I'm like, you know what? There's some joints that I feel like they're a mood, and I feel like I want to put out moods. Like this EP is a mood. This is a vibe. Poolside vibes. That's you at the pool. That's telling you. Even the titles are going to be very direct. It's telling you what the mood is, and I feel like then I can go in a rehearsal studio or something and perform a medley of those tracks, and then put that out as a music video, and put that out as stuff to share online, and people can hear it and go find it. So it's just more about putting out the music and having a theme with it, and then going to perform it, and not just. And then artists should know as well. So I know if you're thinking about pitching and stuff, for example, on Spotify, you can only pitch one song. So I know a lot of people think, well, I'm going to lose those other 2 songs. But no, I put out the EP. Then if I feel people are gravitating towards one or the other more, then I'll go release that as a single, Also, with the EP series, some of the stuff will be instrumentals, some will be, the vocal edit has already been out, but now I'll put out the track on its own because people love to listen to instrumentals too, and dance music and alternative versions, maybe demo, maybe a live, it will be on the EP. So it'll just be more fun and a way to, even some song, I'll put out the instrumental first before I even put out the vocal one, and just see how people vibe to that. And then I'll come back and do another EP, and it'll be the vocal mixes. So it's just a way to play with all the stuff that I have, and also just to give people more than one song to listen to. I mean, as far as like people put out albums, I still think it's great, and I think I respect that. And but as far as the freedom that the distribution allows is that you can put out something. You can put out one song if you want, or you can put out two songs or three songs. Making an album is expensive. To do a full album, depending on what kind of music you do and how not everybody can afford to do that and mix and master a whole album. So instead of like before where you have to wait and till you get all that money and get it done, now you can start off with a single, and then you can ride that out, and then you can put out another one, then you can put out like the waterfall thing and all that. You can put out the EP. You can build up. Also, it's just a good way to know what works and what doesn't, instead of investing into this whole huge project that doesn't work the way you thought it was going to. This way, with the singles, distribution allows you to release whenever you want, how you want. You can test things out and see what works. Go back and fix things, and go, oh, maybe that's not it. Or maybe this is it, before investing into this whole thing. And that's just, I don't have to wait, for a label to say it's my time up to do it, or I have to wait for, it's your music.